people, LGBTQIA plus communities, immigrants, people with disabilities, people with low incomes who will die, period. Even with Roe in place, it is Black women and people who bear the brunt of unequal access to abortion care. The U.S. leads the developed world in Black maternal and infant deaths, and this is in no way a coincidence. It is Black women who are more likely to lack health insurance, quality sex education, and access to quality preventative health care measures because of the pervasive social inequities that too many leaders in our government refuse to acknowledge and rectify. If we take away the legal right to abortion, then it will be us who will be hit even harder than our white neighbors. It will be us who will be disproportionately criminalized, arrested, or charged for pregnancy outcomes, including experiencing pregnancy loss, for struggling with substance use, and for self-managing our abortion care. It is our lives and livelihoods, our safety and freedom that are at stake. Forced pregnancies and forced birth are downright egregious, and they are recognized as torture by the United Nations. Torture! This is torture that the United Nations, this is their term. Many of you know my story. When I was 17, I was raped, I became pregnant, and I chose to have an abortion weeks later when I turned 18. That experience sits in the heart of my understanding of what abortions fundamentally are. They are indispensable, they are essential, they are non-negotiable health care. Since the day of the Supreme Court draft opinion, since it became public, I have been filled with even more righteous indignation for our entire country and the millions of people who will be impacted by this draconian decision. A righteous indignation for every person who knows how deeply personal and consequential private medical conversations and decisions are, and how important it is to protect our rights to privacy and bodily autonomy. A righteous indignation for those who experience miscarriages, those who experience ectopic pregnancies and other medical emergencies that require care to save lives. This isn't always just a choice, but even as a choice, it should be ours to make. That's right. But our colleagues in the Senate have the power to put an end to potential widespread suffering with a single move, a single move. They can end the filibuster and codify Roe. So, I'm talking to you, Joe Manchin. I'm talking to you, Susan Collins. I'm talking to you, Lisa Murkowski. I'm talking to anyone who dares to have the power to do something in this moment, who understands the implications of this moment and is considering choosing not to. Every single member of the United States Senate supported a filibuster carve-out. Let's remember, supported a filibuster carve-out to raise the debt ceiling only 5 months ago. We are beyond the days of hollow gestures of solidarity. You can save those. Yeah. This is a decision about the livelihoods of millions of people. This is about forced pregnancies. This is about people who will be forced into childbirth. We must not allow it. We must save lives, and we will. So, thank you, and I'd like to turn over the microphone to my colleague from the great state of California, Judy Chu, and our incredible leader in this struggle. And we got to remember the principal sponsor of the Women's Health Protection Act.
Thank you, Congress members Casten and Bush, for inviting all of us at this press conference. At a time when we are seeing an all-out assault on our reproductive rights and bodily autonomy, I join with my colleagues here today to call for an end to the filibuster. Last week, a bomb was dropped on all of us. That was when we saw the draft decision of the Supreme Court, showing that there were 5 justices willing to take away Roe versus Wade from this country. And I thought about the millions of women whose rights would be taken away from them. I thought about the 13-year-old who's a victim of incest who could not get an abortion. I thought about the woman who has an ectopic pregnancy whose life would be threatened, who could not get an abortion. I thought about all the women who may have had 3 or 4 children but could not afford another child at this moment in their lives, who could not get an abortion. But we have something that could restore that right for all these women across America and in every state. And that is my bill, the Women's Health Protection Act. It would enshrine abortion rights into federal law, protecting our right to decide what happens to our bodies regardless of who sits on the Supreme Court. It would make that decision one that would be between a woman and her doctor, not something in the realm of a politician sitting here in Washington, D.C. And it also prevents state-based bans from chipping away at the protections established in Roe versus Wade. Now, I'm proud that the House did pass the Women's Health Protection Act in September of last year by a vote of 218 to 211. It was the most supported pro-choice bill ever passed by a House of Congress. This bill passed because House Democrats understood that this day was coming, that reproductive rights were under attack at the highest levels of our nation's court, and that we could not leave our freedoms in the hands of 9 unelected judges. Unfortunately, Judge Alito's draft opinion confirmed our worst fears, which is why this bill must pass the Senate. I mean, President Biden has already said he would sign this bill. So we have the House, we have the White House. What we don't have yet is the Senate. Thankfully, Senator Schumer has announced that the Senate would once again take up the Women's Health Protection Act. And let me tell you, we do have 49 Democrats willing to vote yes on this bill. We have 2 so-called pro-choice Republicans who say that they are for women's choice. We would therefore have a majority of votes for the Women's Health Protection Act. And so this bill could actually be signed into law. But what is preventing us from achieving this? It's the filibuster. We cannot let this filibuster stand between us and protecting the rights of every American. A tool of segregation should not be upheld to deny the personal liberty and rights that we have had in this country for the past 50 years. So today, I call on my Senate colleagues to abolish the filibuster and support the Women's Health Protection Act. And now I would like to call up our wonderful, amazing leader of this event, Senator, I want you to be a senator so that we can change the filibuster. Okay, so, but Congressmember Sean Casten. Yeah.
As I tell everybody, don't call me a senator because I come in the body where we actually do things. I'm Sean Casten. I represent the 6th District of Illinois. That is the district that was once represented by Henry Hyde. Henry Hyde of the Hyde Amendment, who for all practical purposes ended the right to access a safe and legal abortion for anybody who depends on public health in this country. That district is now 2-to-1 pro-choice because it's what the American people want. What you're looking at up here are the leaders of this body, but we are a small subset of the 537 Americans who have the privilege to hold federally elected office. And if you have that privilege, you also have the responsibility that says, what would you do if you knew that by your actions, women in this country will live or die? Because that's the choice that we have right now. We know that 1 in 4 women will get an abortion before she turns 45. We know that that's true in red states and blue states. We know that that's true in areas that have access to safe maternal services and do not. The only difference is the safety of that procedure. So that's the choice. Do we want those women to live or do we want them to die? It should not be a hard choice. And make no mistake, we were warned. When Trump campaigned, he said, I will only appoint justices who will overturn Roe v. Wade. He then only nominated justices who would overturn Roe v. Wade. What did Mitch McConnell then do? He then said, I will get rid of the filibuster so that we can cram through these justices who will overturn Roe v. Wade. And that's exactly what they did, notwithstanding one senator from Maine who seemed surprised by that. The House was not surprised. Thanks to the leadership of Congresswoman Chu, we passed the Women's Health Protection Act that would put those protections into law, would make sure that we take rights away from the one group in this country that has shown us that they cannot be trusted with those responsibilities. That is, of course, the conservative majority on the Supreme Court. The Senate has done nothing. Now, don't tell me that voting on cloture is doing something. They did not vote. The purpose of the filibuster is to provide the Senate with the ability to not have to vote. They don't vote on it. So the question now for all of us to ask is, who has more rights in this country? 166 million American women or 40 United States senators? I think we know the answer to that question. So if you're a member of the Senate, if you know that your house is broken, if you know that the rules of that house are broken, if you know that the rules of that house have been designed to frustrate the intentions of our founders that said, let us make sure that the hardest questions of the day are resolved by a simple majority vote, you have the power to fix it. So what we're calling on the Senate to do is to simply act. Get rid of the filibuster, vote to pass the Women's Health Protection Act, and then let's move on so that we can be focused on the more pressing challenges of our day. But if they are unwilling to do that, whatever they aren't pro-choice. And let me just leave with one final comment. Let's say that they do nothing. Let's say that a year from now, the Republicans are in control in the Senate. Does anybody seriously believe that Mitch McConnell, who has already repealed the filibuster once to jam these judges through, will not repeal it again to codify this into law? I ask our Democratic colleagues in the Senate only have the courage that Mitch McConnell has already shown, and that is a shameful statement, but I think you can do it. Thank you. With that, we'd be happy to take your questions.
Should the president be doing more in terms of executive action on codifying abortion, or at least trying to get some sort of protections for women seeking abortions, given the fact that the Senate is likely to flounder on this issue?
Well, the Department of Justice immediately has challenged the bills such as the Texas law, the bounty hunter law that was passed. So there have been quite a few executive actions, at least from the Department of Justice. So I would say that they have done quite a bit on that end, but in terms of enshrining the protections of Roe versus Wade, that really has to be a law passed by Congress.
This is for everyone's answer. Part of what you all are doing up here is to call out one of your own colleagues in the Senate. Voters who supported you are looking to see what Democrats will do to support this issue, but part of what you're doing by calling in the filibuster is calling out one of your own colleagues. Is that kind of internal debate among the Democratic Party about what should be done? How are voters supposed to respond to that if Democrats can't agree on how to address this issue?
If we frame this as politics, we do not deserve our job. This is about whether or not we are going to look out for the people whose rights are being stripped from them. This can't just be that you're wrong because of the letter after your name. It's the right thing to do. Folks here know it's the right thing to do. And we have 113 members of the House who are willing to call that out, not on a party basis, but because it's the right thing to do. We know we have a pro-choice majority in the Democratic caucus. This is the time to prove it. Any other questions? Thank you all.
Yeah. Do you want it with your phone? Or yeah. You want horizontal? On this, so we can get the whole thing. Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
Hefty case. Okay. Oh my god. Okay, we can get closer together. There we go. It's a lot of stress actually. 1, 2, 3. Beautiful.
So my role is still similar.
Thanks guys. Thanks.
I'm sorry, I meant to acknowledge you. I am so sorry. No, we acknowledge our advocates. I hope people realize we forget. Yeah, no, you're not. I didn't have it. It's so I really do.
You can take that with you.
We had a water shortage already. Are you going to drink a cup after?
I think they were.
I've heard you had much to eat or drink.
No, I ain't.
Nice to meet you. I'm glad you